Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Above the Bar podcast, where each week we belly up to the bar with a new guest, find out what they do, who they are, and what makes them great. So sit back, relax, and enjoy. Alrighty, folks, welcome back to the Above the Bar podcast. It's your host, Sean. It is Wednesday, November 9th, pre-Marine Corps birthday eve. So for all my Marines that are out there that are watching, tomorrow, stay tuned. We're doing 2 episodes this week, which is something we don't normally do. So we're doing an extra one, and it's just going to be a bunch of Marines hanging out and telling lies. Trust me, there'll be not one truth told. But today, our guest needs no introduction because she has a blue check mark next to her name on Instagram, which I was like, look at this shit. Who am I? I'm nobody. I don't have a blue check mark, and I'm not paying $8 for it either. Has a blue check mark. She is the Canadian crewing crusher. She is the rope-a-dope rower from, I can't say Ronkonkoma, but we've brought to us today live. We're Canada 2 for 2 this week. So we have with us live today Miss Kristen Roper. That's what it sounded like, the podium, didn't it?
Yeah. Well, nobody was there, but
that's just so sad. Yeah, it sounds great. Nobody was there. Good.
It's funny that you're knocking me for the blue check mark because we got them after the Olympics in 2016, and within the first week of me having it, somebody messaged me and was like, how do you have the check mark if you only have like 1,000 followers? Like, so much attitude. And I was like, don't hate the
because player. I'm an Olympian. Suck it.
I'm an Olympian. And that's so funny that as you're saying this, that's what I feel like the tone for anyone who bothers me about something like that. Like, why are you doing this? This is unreal. I don't care if it's like I look and it's a 75-year-old man who smokes Pall Malls non-filtered. I just feel like their voice as soon as they start is like, why are you like this? Like, that's all I hear.
Yeah.
So, well, welcome to the bar there, Miss Kristen. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's fun to be here.
Absolutely. We're 2 for 2 at trying to get big in Canada this week. So we're going 2 for 2. So let's go ahead and get the show going here, do a little bit of house cleaning, and then we're going to find out about what it means to be an Olympian and talk about training to be an athlete, all those things today. So first things first here. As you can see, we got the big board over my right shoulder, sticker and a cause. If you've got something you're supporting, something you believe in, something that's important to you, make sure you reach out to us on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. It's all the Above the Bar podcast. Or email is the Above the Bar podcast @gmail.com. Send us a message real quick. Let me know what you got going on, what you're supporting. I don't care if it's a podcast, an athlete, a shirt company, whatever it is you got going on. Reach out. Little free advertising for you, and we'll put your sticker on the big board. Now, maybe your media looks like it probably couldn't row itself out of a wet paper bag. You might want to reach out to Media by Dibs. That's Media by Dibs on Instagram and Media by Dibs on Facebook. And if you want to look him up on LinkedIn, it's Andrew Dibble, no S at the end of it. We figured out that I can't spell his name right. But you
every single first grader today. Every single first grader.
That's
right, Dibbles? Yep. All right. Here we go. Thanks, Sean.
There it is. You're welcome. Because all the first graders listen to my show routine.
Yep. Absolutely.
This is required listening for first graders in Michigan. So make sure you reach out to Andrew Dibble. He'll give you a 10% discount off your first order, and he's going to hook you up with a free consultation. All you got to do is say belly up to the bar. So, all right, everything's done. All the house cleaning is complete. I really, I was looking for, I was going to look for the Olympic music for you, Kristen. I was going to play that for you. And then I've thought about it, and I was like, I know my luck. I will get sued.
DMCA.
Well, the IOC is extremely protective over their brand and everything to do with all that. So you probably made a good call.
Yeah, they would, and I would be the one guy where they're like, once we're making an example of this podcast, you want to play our music? Look what we can do to you. Now play it, little man. Like,
I love that they're weird, evil Germans. That's great.
Why would is it? Look, is that not how all this works? The worst people in your life are they always, if they're going to make you do something, they sound like the weird German. If they're criticizing you, they sound like a valley girl. If they're chastising you, it's your mother's voice in your head. This is reality.
That's true. Whenever you mock somebody that's bothered you, you kind of always have to have that little tone in it, don't you?
Oh,
There's a voice for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you instantaneously go back to third grade and you're like, here, I'm going to go throw this out to everyone. So all that being said, how are you there, Miss Kristen?
Yeah, I'm good. Thanks. It's I'm great. I can't complain. I live in British Columbia, which is on the west coast of Canada. So we don't typically get like crazy winters, but it's starting to cool down quite a bit here. So I've just been like snuggled up inside all day trying to escape.
No, it snowed twice here, so I'll take some of your good weather. That's not cold.
He's the only American right now that has to go south to get into Canada. Did you know that?
Really? Wait, where do you live?
Upper Michigan.
Okay.
So he has to go south to get into Canada from the continental United States. How about that one?
I was just there. I was just at the bridge. I missed that exit. I'm going into Canada.
Oh,
Wow.
I have made the other one, crossing from Niagara Falls, Canada, back in Niagara Falls, US. That could be a trip that takes you seconds, and they're like, have a nice day, to this line is going to take forever. And I've seen some craziness. But so for everyone who doesn't know what crew is, do you want me to explain it, or let me explain it and then you correct me? How's that?
I was like, okay,
I love that.
This is even better. I will explain it and you will correct me.
Okay, sounds good. I'll jump in at the very end instead of cutting you off.
If I remember, let's see. So there's 3 crew types in the Olympic, like a single person, 2 people, and then like a whole boat of people.
Here, maybe I'll take a shot at explaining.
Sean messed it up in the first go. All right.
I thought that's what I saw when I was looking.
There's
like
actually across both genders and weight classes, there's 14 different categories that you can race in at the Olympics.
You were super close with 3.
But I was talking like there's like races where it's just one person in the boat,
right?
Races where there's 2 people in the boat, and then there's races where it's like, what is it, like 7 or 9?
Yeah. So within rowing, there are 2 main disciplines. There's sculling and sweeping. So sculling is when an athlete will have 2 oars in their hand, so they'll kind of do this motion, and a sweep athlete only has 1 oar, which would only go out to one side.
That makes sense.
There are boats that have 1, 2, 4, and 8 people. So obviously, single scull you can only scull in a single scull, right? Like you have to have 2 oars. And then the 2-person boat will have the double oar and the single oar discipline. Same for the 4. And then the largest boat is called the 8. And that boat, there's only sweeping. And that boat actually has 9 people in it because there are 8 rowers and then 1 athlete that's called the coxswain. And that athlete is sort of responsible for steering and has a microphone and sort of executes the race plan and so on. So I am mostly a sweeper. I can do both, but I've raced and trained most of my time sweeping. So I have 1 oar. And I've spent most of my time in the bigger boats. So the 8 and the 4 is the sort of boat class that I feel the most comfortable in / have seen the most success in. But during training, we sort of move around between all the different boat classes, depending on what the intent of whatever session that we're trying to get is. So, and then, there's men and women, and then lightweight and heavyweight. So in the Olympics, there is a lightweight double. That's the only boat that they have at the Olympics. So yeah, there's the rundown of all the Olympic categories.
So what's that breakdown for the lightweight and heavyweight? Like how big of a difference? I mean, like,
the lightweights just have to be. I might get this number wrong, but
this is about to make me cry.
There's two people in the boat. It's a double, so they each have 2 oars. I think the average weight that they have to be is like 57 kilos for
get out the calculator.
Women. Yeah, something like that. And then open weight, there's it's basically anything above that. So there's no.
I gotta get my calculator. Hey Siri,
125.
I'm so far away from being a lightweight that I don't even know
125.
what the lightweight weights are.
Is 125.66 pounds.
Thank you, Siri.
Yeah, that's for the women, and then the men are a little heavier, obviously. So.
Well, so I did my research on you, and so you haven't, from what I found. First off, how cool is it? She has her own Wikipedia page. I mean, fucking blue check mark and a Wikipedia page.
Yeah.
Somebody might be okay with the Valley Girl accent.
Again, don't hate the player. I didn't make it.
Don't hate the player, hate the game. I mean, but I was looking.
I actually haven't seen that. I hope that the information on that Wikipedia page is accurate.
It looks pretty. Well, you tell me. Mm-hmm. It looks to me like, and since 2021, not counting 2021.
Okay.
You have only in 2019 did you not win some form of a medal for rowing? Like 2010, 2011, 2012, 13, 2 medals, 14, 15, 16. I'm sorry, I missed that. 16, I don't see anyone. 17, 18, and 20.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah.
There's one of our.
Is it hard to hold that smile back as he's reading off your plethora of hardware?
No, I'm just thinking like, ooh, that's a lot of years, Christine. You're not young anymore.
Well, what I wanted to, so you're from now. Did you grow up in British Columbia? That's.
Yeah, no, actually. So I'm actually a dual citizen with Jamaica and Canada. So. I know I get that reaction all the time. Shocking, I'm sure.
Jamaica.
Yeah, exactly. My dad's Jamaican and my mom's Canadian. My brother, sister, and I were all born and raised in Jamaica. And we actually went to the States for boarding school. I went to a boarding school in Connecticut called Kent. And that's where I learned how to row. I had no idea what rowing was growing up. There's no rowing in Jamaica. And I was 6 feet tall when I was 13 years old. So it was sort of a natural fit for me. They had that sport at school. So I sort of started it. And once the rowing started to get a bit serious, through being a dual citizen, I had eligibility to race for Canada. And so sort of went down that route. And then when I graduated from university, I went to UVA, University of Virginia, for college.
Cavaliers.
Yeah.
ACC.
That's right. And when I graduated from school, then I got invited to train with the national team, and that's what brought me to live in Canada. But like I said, my mom's Canadian, so her whole side of the family lives here. My brother lives here now too. So, yeah, I'm sort of new to British Columbia, even though my mom's from here. But yeah.
So Taylor Swant, who's saying hello, is your complete opposite. So where you're 6'2" in row, she's 5'1" and is a hockey goalie.
Oh, there you go.
She just signed a semi-pro contract. So
yes.
Oh, cool.
It was with
love the women in sports aspect.
And then what did I tell you before the show was going to happen? What was the one thing I told you was going to happen, Christine? Do you remember?
Maybe a hint.
This part on air.
No, I don't know.
Read that off.
Oh, yeah, you did say that. Yeah. Yeah, that you'd have a buddy that was going to ask me about what kind of food I eat.
So we'll ask it. We'll get this one right out there for Nate.
Yeah.
We talk about this all the time. And yes, Taylor, I hooked you up. Okay, you're 5 foot, not 5'1". I hooked you up. I was actually thinking 5'2" at first, so I figured I'd go in between it. But do you have, because we'll get into this, but you got to know it. Is there like a pre-post win meal, anything along those lines, or is it kind of like whatever's there is there?
Well, we just eat a lot. So rowers, we put in a lot of miles and we train an unnecessary amount sometimes. At the time when I'm training, we eat up to like 5,000 calories a day, probably for the women.
Wow.
The guys can eat up to 8,000 calories a day.
Good gravy.
And so, I mean, honestly, we try to eat as, clean. If you eat crappy food, you usually feel kind of icky.
Crappy.
But I mean, we just eat like, my life is like eat, train, eat, break, eat, train, eat, break, eat, train, eat, break. So, obviously after we're racing, you can, have a few drinks and maybe not be as diligent about it. But yeah, while we're training, it's just a ton of food all the time.
So you're up in Connecticut. You learn crew. College crew.
Yeah. So I rode while I was at my
UV.
boarding school. And
Okay.
then I got a scholarship to attend UVA, like on a rowing scholarship. So I rode there as well at the university level in the NCAA for 4 years.
I want to double
I feel
check.
like that's a huge thing, like that area, like the Connecticut, Harvard.
Yeah, the sort of New England
type. Yeah, New England.
Yeah, the New England boarding school rowing scene is actually quite big.
I mean, I don't know how many movies have started that way, where it's I'm pretty sure Goodwill
like the
Hunting
rowing
has,
boat.
it has a rowing down. Pretty sure like Silence of the Lambs has it or something in the beginning.
Yes. Anything in Philadelphia. So anything in Philadelphia, you're either going to start with the steps or on the Schuylkill at Boathouse Row.
Yeah, I feel like Boston is similar too with the Charles. Like there's always some kind of.
Now, have you ever rowed Hudson? We have a big crew scene up here where I'm at in Albany. We have a huge crew scene.
I can't say that I have. No, not yet.
Yeah, that's like the high schools here, like regular public high schools have crew teams around here.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love to hear that. It's like, I think it's not, I mean, rowing is not a popular sport in the grand scheme of sports out there. Right. So, and it's pretty hard to get into. And I think that's just the nature of the environment that you need somewhere that you can row, but then also just all the equipment that is involved and the fact that it's all the people that need to be involved. You can't just like pop on a pair of running shoes and go outside and go for a run,
Well, you can't, and you also probably just can't be like, hey, we're going to do our row meet here. We're going to compete on this. There's got to be a lot that goes on to that.
Yeah, even just like the safety and all the timing and the umpire. So usually takes a bit of infrastructure for a program to get going. So it's really cool when you see like high schools or just like development programs getting people just introduced to the sport and then involved in some way or another. And like I said, I mean, I think you just kind of stumble on it. Like I had no intention of being a rower when I was like a kid. But yeah, I got.
Wasn't like mom rode, dad rode. It's a family lineage or something like that.
No way. Actually, I remember the first time I got in a boat, I was like, this is absolute madness. Who would do this? This is like, what is this?
But the crazy thing is, like, you never I feel like that's one of those underestimated things where you just said like, oh yeah, we like the calorie intake of the training, where you're like, oh yeah, you're someone else. Like you get that macho guy, like, oh yeah, you're a rower. Like, yeah, no, I could destroy you. Like,
yeah.
It's a whole. So when and this is something I've always found interesting. So I love the Olympics. I tell my wife, she likes it if it's on. I'm the person that would be willing to take a week off of work just to watch.
Yeah, me too.
And get mad when I can't watch certain things. Like, and I'm the one that I don't care what the sport is. If they had underwater basket weaving in the Olympics, sign me up. I'm watching it. I'm all over it. I even watch the water dancing and that.
Yeah.
And I'm impressed because I'm like, where do you get that buoyancy from? Like the sheer power in your legs to be able to hover and do it. I'm mind boggled by it. But the reason I'm bringing all that up is for you, where did, we all think, in the States, high school to college, but you're in a sport that your next level is the Olympics. That's where your sport goes. When did you know or make that decision? Like, I think I'm going to go be an Olympian.
Yeah.
Like, where does that come into your head?
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think that there are definitely sort of two types of people, or athletes, or Olympians, I should say. There are some that, dream of the Olympics when they're 4 years old. They'll do anything to get there. Maybe there's a target sport that they have in mind, or their parents were Olympians, or they had some kind of role model, I was not like that. I grew up also in a family that really appreciated the Olympics. So my parents were just like you would. I mean, during the games, it was all that was on, and very celebrated in our household. So I had an appreciation for the Olympics, and I enjoyed watching it. And got the goosebumps when you hear the national anthems, or you see people emotional on the podiums and stuff. So, and I've always sort of been into sports my whole life. Being as tall as I am, it was kind of natural thing. So so I had an appreciation for the Olympics, but never once was I like, I'm going to be there one day. But like I said, I sort of stumbled on rowing when I was in high school, and I was mostly a swimmer growing up. But the more I rowed, it sort of became clear that was my main sport. And especially when I got the scholarship to attend UVA, it then became like my sole focus athletically. And I think for me, it was just very like, I took one step at a time, and that kind of led me to the Olympics. So I was rowing in high school, and the next step was a scholarship to go to university. So then I went to UVA, and then from there, the next sort of step was, well, now you've been invited to try out for the junior national team or an under 23 team. And I thought, okay, well, maybe I'll do one, so did that. And then upon graduating, it was like, okay, well, you've been invited to maybe try out for a world champs team. So I kind of just like always went to the
next were always invites too.
Yeah. And I was fortunate enough that I just really enjoyed whatever level I was at the time. But it wasn't until I got invited to join the senior national team to train full time. And I made my first World Cup team. So for rowing, we've got a World Championships every summer, and then every 4 years is an Olympics. But aside from those, we have a series of World Cup racing that happened during the summer. So when I made my first World Cup team and sort of competed at the level that was no longer at under 23 or junior level, that's when I started to think like, wait a minute, if I, really focus on this, I could make it.
I might be good at this.
Yeah.
I might be able to do something.
Like, hold on.
Got Division I scholarship.
I don't want to get a real
I only
job.
got scholarships, invites. Maybe I'm somewhat okay.
I graduated from university, and I was like, I don't want to get a real job. I'll just be an athlete for a little while, and then it just like all encompassing. And ironically, I actually got voted most likely to never touch an oar again after graduating from UVA. And so it's like pretty funny that
that didn't age too well, did it?
Yeah, no, it's like, well, it became my life. So
yeah.
And then after I went to my first Olympics, I mean, it's not uncommon to go to multiple games in rowing. It's not like gymnastics where you peak at 16 and then it's so women and men, but women can compete into their mid to late 30s is not uncommon. So to see people go to multiple quadrennials is quite normal. So after 2016, I was like, I don't know if I'm quite done with this yet. Just like kept the train rolling. And even now that since competing in Tokyo, I'm 32 now, but I'm still, I don't know.
So can we just talk about how nonchalant that was after competing in my first Olympics? Like, no, like let's not just let that slide by. Like, no, that's not a normal.
Yeah, I definitely appreciate that, but it's for us. It's like it's interesting. I speak to my teammates who are now some of my best friends about how you really get sort of blinded by the environment that you're in. So. Living here and training at the training center and sort of being around that Olympic mindset all the time, when all of my best friends are also Olympians, the people that I spend the most of my time with are Olympians, you know what I mean? So it doesn't seem like this cool of a thing, because for me, it's just like normal. Not to trivialize it at all, but
I get it.
It's
no, absolutely.
Hanging out with other podcasts.
Yeah.
It's just like
exactly.
You don't get paid for this either? Yeah. No.
You're as poor as me.
Basement.
We're here because we love it, right? We're all
love it. We just you in your basement, me in mine. I'll podcast to you. Yeah, no, I get it completely.
Yeah.
But we
and I guess like not to cut you off, but on the same level of that is sort of it is when you're training, at least it is your entire life. It's all encompassing. It's like you're very focused on it all the time. And I know you're obsessed with being an athlete or going to the Olympics. And there are people out there where sometimes you'll talk to them and you'll say like, oh, I'm an Olympian. And they're like, oh, there was an Olympics last summer. Or like,
cool. That's
oh, you know what I mean? So they're in the
Yes.
same way that people appreciate it and think it's really cool. There are also some people that like really, it's not their thing. And that's fine too.
But I can't, I mean, just like if you're talking, it just seems like if you're talking to someone like, oh yeah, like, oh, I'm a gold medalist in the Olympics. Like, oh, what? Like rowing? They're like, oh, I'm like, how can you just shrug that off? Like, oh, sorry, can I see your gold medal real quick, please?
I think a lot of people don't really understand. I don't know, maybe I try to play devil's advocate and just I assume that people that think that way just really don't grasp like how all-encompassing an Olympic preparation is. And every athlete that's at the games, whether it be like someone who's a curler or a swimmer or a track athlete or whatever, like has dedicated, like, I don't know, have you ever seen that picture of the iceberg where it's like the tip of the iceberg's above the water and then there's like everything that's underneath it? So I think that an athlete's journey to compete at the Olympics is quite like that. And by the time you're seeing them on TV or seeing them actually competing, that's like the very 1% end of what was a massive journey. So I just assume that like maybe people don't really understand that quite as much as the ones who have been through it or maybe know someone who's gone through it to see it firsthand.
Yeah, you essentially have to beat every other person in that sport in your country to be in that position.
Like, yeah, and there are some sports that even just making the team in itself would be harder than competing internationally. So yeah.
Well, you've already got your first question, and it's our favorite, Kristen Manna. She says you are amazing and so inspirational. But she wants to know, can you describe your daily Olympic training schedule?
Sure. So I mean, this is just for rowing and in Canada, so I'm sure it's different per sport and per country, but this is what we did. If you're on the national team or training for the Olympics, it's your full-time job. So it's basically what we do all day, every day. So we'll train 6 days a week, sometimes on Sundays, but most often than not, it's Sundays are off days. So we train every other day. And every day we'll have 2 to 3 training sessions in it, depending on the day. So a typical Monday, for example, we would wake up, our first session would start around 7:30. Typically the bulk session of your day is the one that's done in the morning, and that's typically on the water. Then you take a little break, and maybe around 11:30, 12 o'clock, we'll do our second session, which is maybe something in the gym, so some type of core circuit or strength training. And then the afternoon session will either go back out on the water or maybe do something on land, a cross train like a bike or a run, or maybe the stationary rowing machines are called ergs, or ergometers, but we call them ergs. And so we do a lot of training on the ergs as well. And then there's some days where we only train twice. So it's just your full-time job all day, every day. So our last session will end at probably like 5 o'clock. I mean, depending on the daylight,
and
what time of year it is. 7:30. Well, it can vary.
7:30. You're sleeping in. Oh.
Yeah, I'm really thankful that none of the teams I had when I was in high school or college were like the 4 o'clock wake up teams, because I don't know how far I would have gotten if that was the case.
We were kind of touching on this before the show, and we had talked about how some countries, winning that gold medal. And I do have a gold medal question for you. Get it? It's a gold medal question. So
Sean, I love you.
I love it.
What?
Easier the better.
Looking for that button. But we were talking about how they, if you're at that level athlete, they could be lavishing things upon some of these, because normally it's very small countries that don't like, they might send 2 athletes if they send that hear this from. But you're saying that when you were, getting ready for the Olympics, are you being, is Canada coming in and saying, hey, we got you, there's a monthly stipend, you can pay your bills, or we're putting you up? Or is this more like, you wanted to be here, we love you, here's a hat,
Yeah, again, I think that depends on the country and depends on the sport. We're fortunate enough in Canada where we do get funding through the government, through Sport Canada. There's different levels depending on where you're at. So when you're competing on the national team and at the Olympic level, you get what's called a senior card. And so basically it's just, funding to cover basic expenses. That being said, it is not a ton. And so we do very much rely on the support of outside sponsors or, even people that will help to fund the team, programs to get involved with. There are a few sort of performance bonuses. So if you medal at a world champs, then you get, a little bit of a boost in your monthly stipend and that kind of thing. But it's hard. It's very hard. And especially, with the cost of living going up, it's definitely a challenge. And it's really hard to, I always found at least rowers are typically not your, most sort of cocky, braggy athletes.
Brash.
But you kind of have to be that way in order to secure like some sponsors or some funding, and sort of try to get people to support you along the way. But yeah, so we do get like a monthly stipend from the government in order for it to be the full-time job, but it's definitely not enough to buy a house and raise a family and save up forever and ever,
So is that on you guys? Like you said, you have to go, like, you don't want to be that cocky athlete, but so is that on you guys to go and find like individual sponsors, and then do you have a representative for essentially like your team to go and find?
Yeah, it's a little bit of both.
Sponsors.
So there are a few people or a few companies or groups or whatever that are team sponsors. So for example, while I was on the team, we had some benefactors who would pay for a food card program that gave us a little bit of money that went towards our groceries every month, or things like that. So there are some team-wide sponsors, but I'd say the majority of it is really on the athlete to sort of kind of hustle and apply for different grants. And like one of them, for example, the banner going across the bottom of the screen right now is called CAN Fund. It stands for Canadian Athletes Now Fund. They're a charity here in Canada that supports Canadian athletes winter and summer games. And so athletes who are in need can submit an application, and then they receive $6,000 that they can use towards all things, training, whether that be your equipment or your rent or your, maybe the travel that you need to do that year, like that kind of thing. So we're really, really reliant on just really kind people, basically, who believe in the Olympic movement and want to support people's journeys, because it's not easy. Not all of us are those basketball players.
Is that like
$1 million contracts?
Right. Is that a one-time grant, or is it like a yearly you can reapply every year? Or
I know with CAN Fund, they open an application every year. And you can be I was a recipient of CAN Fund multiple times, but I believe you can apply once a year. So yeah, there's small programs like that that we really rely on. And other than that,
do you get help from like the, I don't know, I don't want to say team leader, but basically like there's someone that kind of briefs you guys as you're going into this thing and says, hey, here's some of the opportunity, here's some of the, so I got to imagine like some of these kids coming in are super young.
Like how to do it.
Yeah. Like they're not going to have any idea.
I'd say that's sort of evolving. I can't speak to exactly what it is like now, but especially with the introduction of social media and that idea of like individual athletes being able to have that platform to market themselves, is still relatively new. Like when I first started rowing, especially on the national team, like we didn't have, Instagram page, like maybe you had a Facebook, but sort of that shift in social media as a marketing platform has really changed how athletes can sort of offer themselves up to potential sponsors. Yeah. It helps.
I have it.
Heck yeah, it
helps. But yeah, so I think now there is a little bit of guidance in how to do that, and also just like reaching out to other athletes that are trying to figure it out. And I think it's important. I believe it's important for national sport organizations like Rowing Canada or Swimming Canada or USA Field Hockey or whatever it may be, to offer that support to the athletes, because I think it's like a very kind of daunting thing. Like, how do I even market myself? But there are that social media platform and just athletes being able to use their brand has really evolved, especially in the last 4 or 5 years. I noticed a huge difference after the 2016 games versus the games in Tokyo, just with that sort of Instagram, TikTok.
It's huge too, because they have to be able to know and maybe that goes into another question with you guys as publicists and stuff. Mm-hmm. Are they brief? Don't.
We can hire you, Dibs. She'll look. Give her your card. Media by Dibs.
No, I mean, are you guys briefed on
Canadian crew crusher? I need a now. Just
I got the Canadian crew crusher, the cuddly Canadian. I'm doing good. I'll just represent.
I was gonna say,
I don't
pitch some more of those taglines.
I'm loving the Canadian crew crusher, and just her, swolled up back on a rope, just rubbing. Even better. Oh no, you have to tell me if this one fits because I love this. It just popped into my head.
Okay, let's go.
The shirt, the boat, you rowing. I don't care if it's a real picture would be so much better because I always love those one shirts. Mm-hmm. But you rowing in a sequin dress, just the back and rowing like that, kind of I love that imagery. I think that would look so cool. Because we don't think of athletes in those type of ways. Mm-hmm. People kind of lose focus. Hey, this guy that you're watching on the rings that you're
is a person.
He's a person. Oh, and by the way, might be married with kids. Mm-hmm. Hey, this woman who's you see out there and she's whooping that boat around. Oh, hey, she's a woman. She enjoys to go do those things. Yeah.
She has car payments too.
He has car payments. Exactly. I'm thinking this is a whole how great. I'm not a photographer either. Whoever does my photo that I'm thinking of taking Olympic athletes on their equipment, but in an outfit that doesn't work.
Yeah.
I think that's an amazing.
Yeah.
No, see, and I think that's the same. I think that's the same marketing route. I forgot if it was Nike or someone did the same marketing route. Kind of, I think Sports Illustrated, naked everyone, just that pure rawness, and I think that would be the same thing. That's a genius idea. And now someone's gonna do it. Sean's gonna be like, "Damn it, that was my idea."
You don't say great ideas out loud, do you?
Look, you know what? I have so many.
I'm on my way to Canada. Let's do this.
If I don't get my great ideas out, they just flutter away. Kristen wants to know: are you planning on writing a book or doing any inspirational speaking?
Oh my gosh, that's a great question. I do not plan on writing a book yet. I don't know. My journey is not over, but that's not on my radar. But inspirational speaking is something that tried to get into a little bit more, especially after the success from Tokyo. I think that, there's a lot to learn from a high performance sport environment. Absolutely. And I am a people person through and through, so I don't mind public speaking and sort of trying to share what we have. So I'm passionate to help out wherever I can. So whether that be corporate talks or just showing up at schools and talking to kids and just trying to spread a little bit of what I've learned along my rowing journey is something that I am passionate about, and very open to. I don't think I've said no to somebody that's been can you come talk about, motivation or whatever piece of athletics works for them. But I don't think I'll write a book. I don't know.
Just sitting here, I just had that thing, oh yeah, cool, I'm doing a podcast with Sean. Cool, I'm talking to an Olympian. Okay, yep. I'm just gonna sit here and.
This is what I've done in his life. I bring this magic to him. But now. Talking about doing these things and keeping on, and we've had, to reference another guest we had, Laura Amon. She has a deal where she coaches athletes, Olympic athletes after their careers, college athletes after their careers, because she was somewhere in, I believe it was Ohio. Mm-hmm. She was a collegiate swimmer.
Okay.
And she talks about how her last swim, was the worst swim she's ever had. worst of her collegiate career, got out of the water, and her coach talked to her about it, and she didn't realize, but she had physically defeated herself in like some psychological way. And I ain't trying to go down this shitty path, but I got to ask this question, and it's got to be on every athlete's mind. I know for guys like Dibbs and I leaving the service, this is the last time I'll put this uniform on. Have you given any thought to after, or have you done anything for yourself to kind of mentally prepare for that? Because we talk about it now. We saw the athletes in Tokyo taking a break saying, hey, this is too much for me right now. Have you done anything like that for yourself?
Yeah. I think that's like, we could spend hours talking about that topic alone. I sort of think about it twofold. The first bit is sort of that concept you were saying of how you end your career. Like, we prepare and train and work super hard for this one moment that is not guaranteed. And I've had races where I've walked away with gold medals and I've been very successful, but I've also had a lot of really big disappointments. In 2016, we did not get a medal, and it was sort of the first taste of disappointment that I had had at that level. And definitely had this, like, self-worth mental battle. You're disappointed, you're really upset. Did you just waste all this time competing to not end on this super high note kind of thing? And so sort of the first lens that I like to look at that in is really appreciating like their journey to an event and not placing all of the worth on what the result is going to be. And I find like in doing that can kind of just put a little bit more purpose behind something. So especially after coming back after the 2016 Olympics, I remember thinking like, okay, the main goal is to win. Obviously, like, you want to do well, but more than that, I want to be able to lose and walk away with my head held high. I want to be able to have a bad race or have something go wrong and not leave thinking, oh my gosh, everything's a disappointment. And that's pretty hard to do. And I caught myself sometimes like having to really check myself, like, am I doing things correctly? Like, could I lose tomorrow and still hang my hat on the decision that I'm making today, kind of thing?
Is that what you're thinking about pizza? Is that decision?
Kind of. Also, I guess like the sort of second half of that is like life after sport is a massive transition. I think that there's more attention that's being shed towards like the mental health and sort of awareness of all of that for athletes, especially in the last like 5 or 6 years that maybe wasn't there before. So yeah, I mean, you go from something being my whole life revolves around this way of life, this way of training, the way I eat, the way I think, the way I, operate, like my mindset, and you're targeting this one race. And the second that you cross the line, or the last time you put on the uniform, the last time I get in a boat kind of thing, you get up out of the boat and you're like, wait, who am I now? Like, what is my purpose? Like, it's really hard. And even after the result that we had in Tokyo being great, like a gold medal, I was super proud of that. Like, I definitely went into that sort of like post Olympic depression where you just try to figure out who you are. And the transition is very, very challenging. And I'd say, I've found some things that are helping out, but it's not easy. So yeah, I don't know. That was a very long-winded way of answering your question, and I hope I got to it. But like, basically, it's about the journey, not the result. And finding out who you are outside of sports is not an easy thing to do. And yeah, there you go.
You nailed it. And Kristen wants to know what your social media, where they can follow you. There is a Facebook page, Kristen Roper Athlete. It's like an official, like a legit Facebook page.
Oh, is it?
Yeah. There's 2 followers.
Nice.
Some other guy,
I'd say my main platform is on Instagram. So CF Roper 15 is my handle. And that's like the same one that I have on Twitter. And I'm sure you could find it on Facebook, but Instagram is probably the best one to go to.
So you made a couple of really good like when you're talking, oh yeah, like I want to be a public speaker. Like you've thought about being public speaking. Like one of those things that you said definitely resonated because I just had the same conversation with a couple of my players the other day was
cool.
There's so much value. And I told them, I'm like, I want you guys to win a championship, but I honestly don't care how you win. What I care about 100% is how you lose. Like that's what is.
It's harder.
Really
it's a lot harder to do.
It is. And then you said like the disappointment that you had in 2016. And then, so in your head, when you're going through that process, is part of it kind of, we just got a gold medal. Now, do I end on this high note on the risk of the next, like Sean was saying, where who knows what that next one's going to be? And do you want to chance it ending on a lower note?
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And I feel like that's such a, like just a battle of your own mind.
Yeah, because we're always growing and learning. I don't think that in anything, I don't think you're ever like perfect and nothing else to improve. So even after winning the gold medal,
we're good.
Even after winning the gold medal, I could still pick apart, things that I wish that I could have done better or areas that I think I can improve. I don't know if that's just the athlete mindset, but you're constantly critical of how you can be better.
Your number one self-critic is yourself. I mean, that's
in a healthy way, like not in a way that I'm like upset about it, but just
self-detriment.
It's sort of that aim to improve is always there, regardless of even if you're at the top, you can always get higher if you improve on things. So that's like a motivating factor to coming back. But you hit the nail on the head in that, like, there's a massive risk that you could come back, do all the work that goes into it, make all the sacrifices that you need to make, and walk away with a result that you're not, that maybe isn't as fun as a gold medal. And I think that was a huge lesson I got after competing in my first Olympics, was like, okay, if you hang all of your worth in a pursuit on like how it ends, then it's not, it doesn't really give much meaning to something. And I find like I've really learned that like the process and the journey, like how you compete, your mindset, how you prepare, like those are all things that are way more important to me, at least, than like the result at the end of the day. That being said, I'm very competitive. Of course I want to win. And of course that's the goal. Like I don't want to lose, but I think like, I don't know, the way we thought about it. Yeah. The way we thought about it leading up to our race at the Olympics, where we won, was like, yes, we want to win, but more than that, we just want to be the best versions of ourselves that we can be. And wherever that ends us up, like we have no control over that. We can only control like how good can we perform. We happen to believe that at our best we would be better than everyone else, but that's just like
at that level you have to think that way.
Yeah. And I think like, I don't know, in order for me to keep going and to pursue the next one, I have to be okay with knowing that you could fail. That's like a huge possibility. But it's almost more, I think, I don't know, I find a lot more, I have a lot more respect and admiration for people that aren't afraid of failure. It's not a bad thing. It's just like, it's an opportunity to improve. And it doesn't mean that you have no, like, it doesn't take any worth out of the process just because you maybe didn't walk away with the result that you wanted, basically.
Now I'm curious, I have some Olympic Village curiosity. You've been in the Olympic Village twice now, right?
Yeah. Two very different villages.
Which I was going to say, I imagine they were very, very different from each other.
Yeah.
16 was China, right?
Brazil. So one was a Brazilian Olympic Village.
That was the one that was so controversial because like basically the Brazilian government wiped out entire like people's homes. Like, sorry about your luck. Call your local dealer. Maybe he'll give you a place, and just wiped them out. That's right. So I'm curious, like, so we all heard the story in 2021 with Japan and the cardboard beds, and that the rumor that was going around was they could only hold so much weight, and they were doing this so the athletes weren't
causing trouble.
Entangling. That was the word. Entangling. There was that, going on. But first off, answer that one. Was that what that was for? Did they tell you that?
I can confirm that the beds in Tokyo were made of cardboard.
That's crazy.
That is insane.
Yeah,
I mean, did you hear
were
this from Dibs? Did you know about this?
Yeah. No, I heard about it
yeah,
still.
they were
Like, that's
fully
just
like the bed frames were all like built from cardboard. Like if you unfolded and collapsed it, you could just like collapse it like you would break down a
Very
box. Like, it was
Japanese, very
insane.
well, thought
And
out.
the mattress I think was made out of like recycled plastics. And so the message that we were given,
sounds so comfortable.
Yeah,
no
that's
complaints here. But like the message that we were given is that the more the environmental sustainability piece, which was pretty cool. I can neither confirm or deny the
all
weight
right.
limit
How
on said cardboard beds.
hey now. I gotta get another one of those in for that one because now I'm like, I want to dig into that story, but I'm not going to dig into that story. But look, Kristen's already like, I'll give you her information.
Oh wow! Oh, that's awesome. Like I
she's
said,
looking
yeah, I'm open to public speaking. I'm not like the best at sort of searching it out, but I'm very obviously
all
passionate
about it.
about what we've done. So
Food, Olympic Village food. Let's go
Yeah.
between the two. So let's go. Hold on a sec. So let's do this for a second. So Brazil dorms,
Yeah.
Japan dorms.
yeah.
Which was
So
better? Which was better?
they were just very different in a few ways. For us on the rowing team, when we were in Rio in 2016, we actually stayed in a hotel while we were competing. So rowing takes place in week 1 of the Olympics. The Olympics is usually just over 2 weeks long. So rowing is in week 1, and we were living in a hotel that was closer to our venue while we were competing. And once we finished competing, then we got moved into the Olympic Village. So slightly different vibe in that, like, at that point entering the village, we were out of sort of competition mode and more in
Have a good time.
like you're celebrating the Olympics at this point. Now you're meeting as many people as you can, trying to go to as many events as possible. We, as athletes, you get access to tickets to watch a lot of things, and you're just like, it's just like you're walking around with your eyes like this wide the whole time, and then socializing in the evenings. And so it was a very different mindset. The dorms were quite similar from game to games, just in terms of like, it's just this massive structures that are put up very quickly. Like, I don't think.
Well, what's the Sochi is the one they talk about. Sochi, and then there was another one where there's a term for the Olympic villages afterwards, and it's like not white elephants. But it's something along those lines. Where these countries dump so much money, like Sochi, for an example.
Yeah,
there's nothing.
And I think the sort of maybe sort of long-term goal for these places, like I think in Tokyo, all of the apartments were made out of drywall essentially, because the plan was that they would, after the games, be like gutted and turned into apartments. So it just depends on like what the the long-term goal is.
So they had a plan for it.
Exactly. But in Tokyo, it was just so different because we were staying in the village while we were competing, which is separate, obviously, than what I did in Rio. And then COVID was happening at the same time. So that in itself just changed the entire Olympic experience. Was just completely different because of COVID. We just were doing everything that we could to stay clean and healthy and not get sick. And so it just like totally changed the vibe of the Olympic Village. So versus, in Rio, when it was like this celebration, this party culture, trying to meet a bunch of people, see as much as you can, do as much as you can, versus in Japan, it was like stay as isolated as possible to stay as healthy as you can, and then as soon as you finish competing, get the hell out of there. So it was a bit of a different.
Oh, so there wasn't
hard to compare the two.
There wasn't like hanging out for the extra week and a half for Japan.
No, we unfortunately had to we were on a plane back to Canada the next morning, the next day, because they needed our space for, like, there's only a limited amount of space. Obviously, all the athletes that are competing in week 2, they move us out of the residence at the Olympics and move them in. So it was like a whole thing. But honestly, at that point, like, I think I can't speak for everyone. For me, I was just so thankful that the Olympics were even happening. I mean, the height of the COVID years were tricky for everybody around the world, but originally the Olympics were canceled, then they were postponed, and there was all this massive question mark: are they going to happen? Like, a lot of controversy around whether they even should happen. So I was just so grateful that they were even taking place in the first place. That, like, if they told me that I needed to wear 15 masks, test 15 times a day, like sleep under a brick, like I would have done it, because at that point you just like do anything that you can to make it happen. So yeah, I don't know how I pulled that analogy out.
Here's your blanket, sleep under it. It's just a brick.
So
that's so great.
Yeah, and it was a shame to not have our families there. There were no crowds, no family, like it was, you know, the empty stands and that kind of thing was very weird. But
yeah, how does that like mess with it? Because I know in professional sports, like they actually started pumping like
not a professional did you say her sport was professional?
No, but I know what you mean. Like in the NHL, they like play the crowd over the speakers.
It's still a professional sport. That it amps you up. Like crowds can really get you going.
Definitely.
I mean, like, and I feel like that silence too. Like I remember watching some UFC fights, and I'm like, this is awkward.
Yeah.
Like, luckily, I shouldn't be hearing some things that I'm hearing.
Luckily, with my sport,
dudes fighting in a bar.
Yeah. The crowd doesn't really play as big a role in our sport. I mean, we race over 2,000 meters, like we're in these boats. Usually, the grandstands or the sort of the section with spectators isn't till, you know, the last 500 meters of the race, anyways. And you can definitely hear the crowd, but it's different from like an arena sport where the crowd is so sort of a part of it. So I think just with rowing, I was just really lucky that it really didn't change much of the dynamic, having a crowd there or not. Emotionally, it was, you know, having your family around or your loved ones there to support, or just like having huge. That network there is a massive, massive thing. But, you know, that I miss, but at the end of the day, like, just find a different way to support you. Everything can stream these days. I knew they were watching me. They just weren't in Japan. They were like on, you know, their couches at home instead, but it was
so we're talking about, you know, the next summer games. You're considering, you know, hey, I still got some juice in the tank here. You know, I do need to discuss with you in the next Olympics about you putting the Above the Bar podcast sticker on the boat, so that the camera can see it.
And on
I can include the rules of sponsorships and stuff are just so tight, especially at the Olympics itself. The IOC just has like complete.
This is such a nice way of her telling you to
No, listen, I'll say this. I'm not allowed to race with like personal sponsors or programs or shout outs or whatever at a World Championships or an Olympics, but I'm allowed to train and do all that in whatever I want. So I'll pop the Above the Bars podcast on a t-shirt, wear it on hats, whatever. You can get photographed in it. I just can't race.
Well, just so you know, every guest gets a shirt.
Oh, really?
Yes, that's a real thing.
I love free things.
Everybody gets the baseball style, like because you know, the Above the Bar podcast, softball, bars, you know, it kind of has a vibe to it.
Yeah, I get it. I'm picking up.
So this is super cool. Like the whole experience is amazing. Like, have they done, obviously we've seen documentaries through other stuff. Has there been anything, like, have you guys had a doc team follow? Because I feel like, especially when you're talking about your training process, like just to see that start to finish. And I mean, and watch you guys go that journey of that entire year to where you're on the podium. I mean, have they talked about doing anything?
Yeah. Because huge. It's a huge journey. There's so many parts to it too, which I personally think would be super interesting. My team in particular, no, we haven't like done anything like that. I'd say the closer we get to the Olympics, the more sort of noise and media attention that we get. So in the actual Olympic year, we do have some like broadcast companies or whoever that will come out and they'll sort of film us for a few days to make, you know, media packages as they promote the Olympics or whatever leading up to the games. That's sort of the extent that I've been involved in myself. But I think, I think not just in rowing, in any sport, sort of seeing the behind the scenes of what it takes to get, you know, on the performance level for an athlete.
Well, I don't think people really see. I mean, we see obviously the athletes, we see you guys performing, but we don't see, and as painful as it is for you guys, but we don't see the emotional breakdowns. We don't see a lot of times. We don't see that. What you were talking about, that internal
that
struggle,
sacrifice, or how it's all encompassing. It's not just like it's not just the times when you're at practice. It's like the food that you're consuming, your recovery, how are you sleeping, like how are you spending your time when you're not training, is also just really important. So in that regard, it would be really cool to see like that whole journey, I think.
So obviously it's super intense what you're doing. Do you guys have like almost like backups to your team? Because obviously like things can happen. You can,
oh yeah,
like what's that look like?
Is...
What's that depth chart look like for you guys for say like a team of 4?
In our sport, like I said, there are all different boat classes that will race under, but for a majority of the year, we actually train as like one big unit. So let's say there are 16 racing seats. So between the 8, the 4, the pair, whatever, there's 16 people that will race. We sort of will maybe keep like 20 people in the training environment and sort of change combinations of those seats. The lineups and the selection process really doesn't happen until the sort of tail end of the competition year.
Yep.
But with a team that size, like when you're dealing with 20 people, at any point in time, there's almost always someone that is sick or injured or something. So sort of that, the reserves and the backup and the plan B thing is huge. It's like it would be impossible without your alternates and the backups, like absolutely impossible.
Now, how about for you, as this next, and where is the next Summer Games?
Paris in 2024.
Okay, Paris 2024.
Yeah.
Again, I'm hearing not a bad city yet. I'm just an Olympic pain in the ass. But what's like for you to go from working out and staying as an active person to
getting back in shape,
to getting to a competitive level? What's I mean, you've been doing it, for, would you say you were like 12 when you started, probably? So 20 years?
Yeah, I was 13 or 14 when I first started rowing. So it's been
18, 19 years you've been doing this. What does it take for you? All right, shit all over. I'm sorry.
Right, Sean?
Like 5 years, 6 years.
I'm sorry here.
No, but yeah, how would I
anything at Andy's own affair?
But what is that time like for you to go from, all right, let me turn it on and let's go?
I think I'm lucky in that because I have been rowing for so long, that base is there. But it will definitely take, like it would take a few months for sure to sort of ramp up from, at this current state, I maybe work out for like an hour a day, 5 to 6 days a week. So you're sort of adding, but that's like in the grand scheme of training full time, that's nothing, right? Yeah. So you sort of, over the course of a few months, I think in order to avoid injury, you kind of need to naturally ease back in. So just like gradually upping the volume that you're doing, introducing more of what you're doing in the gym to strengthen. And then with our sport, especially, time so you can be fit, like you can be able to go for long runs or bike for a long time or whatever, but be cardiovascularly fit. But that's a difference between being able to be in the boat and get the technical piece and like more rowing specific fitness. So yeah, it would definitely take a few months of sort of reintegrating into that full-time pattern. But the good news is, I think being somebody that's rowed for so long, I don't think it would be as hard a process as maybe somebody that's newer in the sport.
Not going to be.
So what is that rowing specific, like you said, rowing specific workouts? Like what are you looking at? Obviously.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the body, first of all, like the physical toll on the body, the main muscles that you use when you're in a boat, obviously your legs, and a lot of strain on your your midsection, and then you've got your arms. And so it's getting your body into that fitness of like sort of activating the right muscles, if that makes sense. I think if you're somebody, for example, that runs, 10 miles a day or something, like you could be a super good runner. You jump into a pool and do that equivalent of time swimming, and it's going to completely exhaust you because it's just a different modality. You're engaging different muscle groups and sort of a different activity. In the same way, when you jump into a boat, your body's doing a new movement, so it's going to fatigue you quicker. And then also just the technical aspect. So rowing is, yes, very physical, a lot of fitness and a lot of strength involved, but there's a huge amount of technique involved as well. And I do think it takes a little bit of time to sort of, get back in tune with what you need to be feeling, the mechanics, the very, very picky technical elements of what we do as well. So, yeah.
So
wow.
we're gonna get ready.
Do I want to do this? It sounds like a big hill to climb.
Right? We're just talking her down. She's like, I don't know. I just talked to someone that's got a PR firm. Like, man, I could cut this off.
Yeah,
right
I'm like, well, maybe the public.
So you're saying for $10,000 to $30,000, I can run my face for an hour, and you'll pay me and schedule this? Because people just want to hear how I was good at something, and
I don't have to work out for 13 hours a day.
Will they pay? Will I have a rider? Like,
listen, when you guys find this line for me, you give me a call, because
look, trust me, I have thought heavily on the public speaking and being a motivational speaker, because I am a motivational person.
Yeah.
I have a special way of doing it, but I've thought about it, and you start looking at these numbers. People who just do it and are decent at it and get booked for deals, they could be low end $5,000 and then just go. And then these celebrities who I don't know why people would want to hear them speak at this, but they're like, yeah, especially politicians, easily 6-figure numbers. You start getting the ones like former presidents, $250,000 and better. Wow. Just to stand up there and go, I'm pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's funny when you say just to stand up there, because it's funny. The first sort of speech or talk or whatever that we did after the Olympics, we did as a boat. So all of my teammates, all 9 of us, were invited to speak for a finance company that helped support us a little bit during the Olympics, which was really awesome. We ended up just like the topics that they gave us, that they wanted us to elaborate on, were just, what is your day-to-day like? Highlight a few key aspects of your environment. While we were talking about it, I remember like hanging up the call and being like, weird, because you're just talking about what is your day-to-day, right? What is your normal? Yes. Nothing that we were saying felt extremely out of the box, because for us it was like practiced, rehearsed. It was our normal. And I remember ending the call going, oh man, like I hope that like they probably just thought that was so like, what did we pay these people for? Like, you know what I mean? And the feedback that we got was so cool, I think. And it just like, it really highlighted to me that like, yes, something for me that feels very trivial or very normal, for someone else is like a new concept, or maybe it's pretty cool. In the same way that I would probably hear like, someone with your guys' background speak about your time in the military and that kind of stuff. Like I would, but for you, it's probably like pretty normal. So once I started looking at it that way, like I don't need to come up with these extremely crazy stories or make anything up. I just need to like talk about what was my day to day and like how I experienced it. And maybe that will spark a little bit of interest in somebody that has no idea what this environment really is like.
It's crazy. So we're going to get ready to close this thing up. It's about that time. Don't log off afterwards. You and I got to talk for a moment. Okay. I know you said you're not competing right now, but anything coming up? We talked about Can Fund. Make sure folks, if you Google Can Fund and you're looking to support an athlete, definitely. A Canadian athlete, this is a great opportunity for you. We joke around about what the Canadian side is, I would think, is very similar to the U.S. in the sense that they're amateur athletes. They're not in that world. There really is a passion for what they do. So in some of these ones, governments don't take care of them. The dream team all had their own money. They got to the Olympics. They get there on their own. It's not a real issue for those folks, but those smaller athletes, that they need your support. They need you to be out there for them. Anything coming up, maybe somewhere besides Can, or are you competing? I don't know. Is there I know like you can have like senior hockey, Shorzy.
I wish. I'm not rowing at the moment, so individually there isn't anything. This coming weekend is the National Rowing Championships in Canada. So it's every year, and all of the national team athletes participate in that regatta, along with clubs and sort of every level of athletes. So that's happening this weekend, which is kind of a fun thing in the rowing world. But yeah, as far as me, unfortunately, I'm not rowing at the moment, so I don't have anything that's like, hey, check me out in a few months in this. But the next sort of season of international racing picks up again next spring with the World Cup circuit, and then the World Championships are next summer in, I believe they're in September or August. I don't know the date exactly. I should. But that regatta is actually the part one of the Olympic qualifying
So you got to get your
sort
shit
of experience. Yeah. So you know, success at that regatta could mean a qualifying spot at the Olympics in 2024. So that's like sort of,
so you got to go.
As I spend the next few months like trying to get back in shape, that's what's on my radar is those qualifiers.
So how can we watch those? I mean, I know you mentioned the Olympic streaming, obviously.
Yeah, they're all. I mean, it's really great. World Rowing is our international governing body, and they live stream all of the races, which is pretty cool. So they've got the website, and you can live stream everything. And then you can even watch recordings of races, because I mean, if the racing is in Europe and happens at 2 a.m. your time or something, you can watch recording of past races up to, I think, like the early 2000s. Like the archive of races are all on there. So yeah, it's pretty cool. And then there's some networks, like, I mean, I don't know about the US, but like in Canada, for example, rowing is a bit of a popular sport. So when the World Championships happen, sometimes they'll air it on TV and that kind of thing too. But
we get row sports like that on TV. Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm basically
gotta be some channel.
I'm basically in Canada anyway, so
yeah, exactly. Michigan.
ESPN Ocho Cinco. I think that's what channel it's on. So we've got all those things coming up, and obviously, folks can find you on Instagram. It's CF1 Roper.
CF Roper 15.
Roper 15.
Yeah.
So they can find you there. They can find you on LinkedIn as Kristen Roper OLY.
That's right.
They can find you there. They can come be the other, like the third follower with me. Kristen Roper athlete, which was like, as soon as you type her name in, that's the first thing that pops up. Is her in her, Superman pose and 35 medals.
Really? Oh, I need to go check this out. Should I follow myself?
It's on Facebook. It's Kristen Roper athlete.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I was like, oh, there's one. Well, maybe I'm reading that wrong. Maybe it's like one new one. And I clicked it and it went 2. I was like, oh shit. Okay, I got it. So make sure you're taking the time, and and look, if you can't find Kristen, you want some information, you can reach out to us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, doggone TikTok, Instagram. It's all the Above the Bar podcast. Emails the Above the Bar podcast at gmail.com. If you got that sticker, you want to find out how to talk to Kristen. We're going to hook up Kristen and Kristen, C Kristen and K Kristen, and then we can figure out this whole speaking arrangement deal. Dibs, you got it. Oh, and don't forget, tomorrow we have the special show, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to have a bunch of old Marines that are now all retired telling lies about how amazing we were while trying to figure out who was actually, tells the truth. We were all the best. Trust me. I used to drive them some bitches nuts.
Then you were doing it right.
Because I was senior to all of them. I led them all. I retired before all of them, and then they all surpassed me in rank. And it's so great that but I used to torture them. Like they would send me kids to go to boot camp, and I'd be like, your kid's just jacked up, they're like, what, Gunny? I'd be like, come get him. He ain't going to boot camp. They get so mad at me. I was that guy. Dibs, you got anything coming up?
I don't know about coming up. I mean, we got our schedule still going. We're rocking away, but huge shout out, former Snow player from 2 years ago, Logan Lambden, just got loaned over to the Chicago Wolves. He's one step away from the NHL, so it's a huge thing for us.
Nice.
Yep, it's awesome.
Tell me more about what is the NHL? What is that?
Easy now, lacrosse.
I don't watch it. I watch lacrosse. See, and NIL, National Individual.
No, it's huge for us. I mean, to have our players come from us, to have him go up to play with the K-Wings, to be Rookie of the Year last year, and now to see him in the AHL and just that one step away from getting to the show it's a big deal for us. It's why we started the league and the teams. So
nice. So we have one simple rule, and remember, don't log off afterwards, Kristen. We have one simple rule. The guest always gets the last word. So what is the final word?
Final word is, I don't know. I guess I'll end it with like a bit of a challenge to anybody, is to just like try something new that you don't know if you'll be good at or not, just for the sake of putting yourself out there, and you never can tell what will happen. So yeah.
Alrighty, folks, be sure to push your stool in.
This has been an Earplug Podcast presentation, found on earplugpodcast.com, iTunes, SoundCloud, and wherever your favorite podcasts are found.